Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to that time for the main event of the evening. This fight is scheduled for five-minute rounds for the VFC Light Heavyweight Championship. It is brought to you by Nissan of Omaha, Ralston Arena, Omaha, Nebraska. Are you ready for war? Introducing first, fighting out of the Winter Cycle Works blue corner. He stands at 6 foot tall, weighing in at 202.6 pounds, holding a professional MMA record of 14 wins, 9 losses, training at a premier combat center from East St. Louis, Illinois, by way of Omaha, Nebraska, Houston, the Assassin, Alexander! His opponent across the cage, fighting out of the Fire Barn red corner, stands 6'6" and weighed in at 205 pounds, holding a professional MMA record of 22 wins, 8 losses. Training out of West Chase Impact Martial Arts from Kansas City, Missouri, your reigning VFC Light Heavyweight Champion, Chuck the Reverend Grigsby. Referee in charge of the action is Dave Jobin.
All right, gentlemen, we've got a 5-round fight scheduled for tonight. We covered the rules pre-fight. Make sure you protect yourself and obey my commands at all times. When I tell you to break, break clean. If you'd like to touch gloves at this time, you can. Return to your corners, come out fighting.
So Joe Wilk, we are set for our main event, the Assassin versus the Reverend. Should be a good one. Chuck Grigsby, the tallest fighter that the Assassin Houston Alexander says that he's ever faced, and should be a good one here tonight. Your expectations as we get set to start round 1 of 5.
I definitely expect an exciting fight. Houston Alexander isn't involved in really any boring fights, and Chuck Grigsby always really brings the fight. He always has. So, right off the bat, Houston with a slip, and Grigsby's going to try to get control in the corner. Looks like Houston's going to get a big takedown, though, and that same corner is going to control from the top position.
And really, Houston really not known for his ground game. Does that surprise you that Houston would try to take down Chuck, or no?
A little bit, but you know what happened there was he slipped, and Grigsby tried to take advantage of it and tried to hurt him early. And you know, I think it was the right thing to do for Houston at the time. He caught his hips, was able to get a big takedown, and turned a bad situation into a good one now, and is winning the fight from the top position.
The Assassin, Houston, training out of Premier Combat Center in Omaha, Nebraska, with the likes of Ryan Jensen, a 7-time UFC veteran, Jason Brills, the Ellenberger brothers, Jay Wood, who just was defeated in the co-main event just a little bit ago. But Houston definitely working on his ground game, and we'll see here right now if you know, any of that work has paid off, as he has Chuck the Reverend Grigsby up against the corner.
Yeah, you know, Grigsby's got Houston's arm caught, or he did a little bit there. He's working on a triangle, and Houston was able to defend it. So maybe that hard work at Premier Combat Center is really paying off for him. He was able to defend that submission attempt right there in the corner.
Both of these guys have faced a lot of top fighters. I mean, Chuck Grigsby, even though he lost, he faced Mark Munoz in the WEC. He's faced a number of quality fighters, as has Houston in his UFC days, and even outside of the UFC. Houston taking the UFC by storm in his first fight, knocking out Keith Jardine. Being released, though, and Houston is, I think he has a newfound excitement and passion for the sport, kind of changing gyms from Mick Doyle's over to Premier Combat Center. And Joe, does it take that sometimes to, you know, move to a different gym, or, you know, just get a different environment in order to take your game to another level, or the level that you feel like it should be at?
Absolutely. Nothing is worse for you in training camp than your comfort zone. You got to get out of your comfort zone. So if you're used to the same people in the same gym, night in, night out, every day, you need to get out of there and go to a new gym. And that's what Houston Alexander did. And sometimes that fresh look is a real eye-opener and can set you up for newly found success.
I think that's one of the things as we continue to watch Houston work from the top, and Chuck with full guard on Houston. So not a whole lot of action going on right now. It doesn't look like either one of them really getting the best of the other. In terms of the judging, Joe, what goes into judges' minds? I mean, I guess if you can even try to guess what goes into judges' minds, but who is, in your mind, or in judges' minds, who is winning this particular exchange right here?
You know, sometimes I wonder what the judges are thinking, but, you know, typically the guy on top in this situation is going to get the nod on the round. If we stay here for the entire round and Chuck just laid in a closed guard on his back, in my mind, that's a defensive position, a defensive posture. If you're on defense, you're losing, and that's in any sport, not just in ours. So I feel like right now we got Houston Alexander on offense, Chuck Grigsby on defense, and if something doesn't change, Grigsby's going to be down 0-1 in the rounds here.
And they're also seeing that not only is Chuck on his back, but Houston is staying active, you know, throwing those punches, getting some knees into the, you know, back of the legs and the buttocks of Chuck Grigsby. So, you know, Houston is staying active, even though it's probably not doing a whole lot of damage to either guy in this particular position as we approach the final minute 10 of our first round. This is VFC 40, the main event. It's the light heavyweight championship that is currently around the waist of the man on bottom here, Chuck the Reverend Grigsby. And Chuck has defended that belt a couple times, knocking out Rob McDonald back at VFC, I believe, 23. And also beating Demetrius Richards to defend his title at VFC 29. So Chuck Grigsby, no stranger to the VFC cage, and neither is Houston. This is his second fight back in the VFC as we are under 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, and I remember that McDonald fight very vividly. That also
nasty.
Happened to be the Joe the Nose Wilk debut.
It was, I recall that.
Fighting championship. So I co-main evented that event, stepped out of the cage and turned right around and watched Chuck, and we both won in short order that night and had a few laughs about it together that evening.
So in your mind, Joe, as we are under 10 seconds, Houston takes round one?
Absolutely. I think that this is a clear-cut choice. He got the takedown controlled from the top position.
All right, we are at the end of round one. This is VFC 40. We'll be back with more main event action right after this. Back here at the Ralston Arena, VFC 40 main event. Chuck the Reverend Grigsby to your left, Houston the Assassin Alexander to your right. This is the VFC Light Heavyweight Championship bout. Alongside Joe the Nose Wilk, I'm Matt Kelly, coming to you from the Ralston Arena in Omaha. And Joe the Nose Wilk on his unofficial scorecard has Houston Alexander taking that first round from the Rev.
Yeah, let's see if we have a little bit more stand-up exchange here. I definitely didn't expect to see a ground fight between these two. We usually get to see these two exchanging punches and see if Chuck wants to try to keep his use that height and that reach to keep that at his range. And we got another takedown from Houston. It looks like we've got a game plan on our hands, Matt Kelly. It looks like that he's going to come out here and try to control from the top position, and we're going to see how successful that is tonight.
So we're a little bit surprised. Do you think Chuck Grigsby is surprised?
I would be if I was him. You know, I think you're staring across the cage at Houston Alexander, and what you're thinking is he's going to try to take my head off. And then you come out there, and if that's on your mind, the takedown probably isn't. And here we are, you know, 2 takedowns in 2 rounds, and this potentially could be what we're looking at for the first couple of rounds at least.
And how much does the height differential play into that? Because Houston, again, saying that Chuck Grigsby at 6'6" is the tallest fighter that he's ever faced, and probably for most people, Chuck is one of the tallest fighters that they've ever faced. Is that something that could play into this, game plan as well?
Yeah, without a doubt. Sometimes those tall, long guys just keep you on the edge of their jab and keep you out right outside of range. It seems like every time they swing, they hit you, and every time you swing, you come up short. And then maybe, they came in thinking, hey, we're going to get these takedowns here. He's expecting a stand-up war. We're going to go underneath those punches and get a couple takedowns, see if we can't get ahead on the scorecard.
So Houston, the Assassin Alexander, still in Chuck Grigsby's full guard, but staying active on top, and referee Dave Jobin decides that it's time to stand these two up, much to the liking of the crowd here at Ralston Arena.
Yeah, Houston wasn't doing enough on top there. He's just kind of controlling the top position. Good stand-up. Here we are again. Oh, and we're 3rd shot. I think we're setting a record here. 4th shot. I think those are the 4 times that Houston Alexander has shot in the history of his UFC and otherwise MMA career. Oh, a big shot. Here we are exchanging some punches now.
Houston landing a nice left, and Chuck also has some Chuck has some hands as well and has shown it over the course of his career, but to me, Chuck doesn't look as comfortable as I've seen him in the past.
You know, everybody knows Houston Alexander's a dangerous opponent, and, you know, that comfort may come later in the fight, but he might be a little cautious, and we got another takedown, but he let him right up. Not sure why he used the energy to get a takedown there and then let him right back to the feet. See if he continues with that strategy.
Is it maybe just to show Chuck that, hey, I can take you down anytime I want?
It very well could be. That could be what he's trying to let him know, and he also could be doing all this just to set up a big exchange. Oh, good uppercut from Grigsby. Sometimes guys are shooting a lot or wrestling a lot actually to set up their striking, and once you get your mind off, you see Chuck's hands are a little bit lower. He's thinking, okay, here comes this takedown, trying to time a knee there, and maybe this is the time where Houston's going to start coming over the top with those big shots he's famous for.
And at the same time, Houston wants to be careful not to be on the receiving end of some of those uppercuts that the Rev has been throwing.
Yeah, you know, Grigsby's done a good job here of making Houston pay a couple times for getting stuck in that range, not getting out of there with his hands up, kind of backing straight up a couple times, and Grigsby's made him pay and touched him. Houston, like we've talked about, is looking to mostly wrestle here, and we've had a few more exchanges on the feet and a much closer round this time as well.
And we saw the right leg kick by Houston, but Chuck is catching Houston. Houston with a little smile for the Rev. But so far, kind of a different Houston Alexander than most folks are used to seeing.
Right, and it looks like Grigsby's starting to settle in again now. It looks like he's starting to relax a little bit. I think he's starting to find his range, kind of be a little bit more comfortable, and you know, we're almost 2 rounds into this fight, and it looks like, you know, Houston's game plan is going to be to want to wrestle and just throw big shots in the exchanges, and Grigsby's wanting to stay on the outside, keep Houston at range, and touch him with big shots and try to win that fight that way.
And another thing that we're seeing is Houston, Chuck gets him with the right, but Houston's going for the midsection a little bit, throwing some jabs at the midsection of Chuck Grigsby as well.
Well, after that last fight, we know that the body shots are definitely a game changer sometimes, so not a bad idea for either fighter sometimes to look at the body, especially in a long fight.
Final 20 seconds here of round number 2 of 5 in the VFC Light Heavyweight Championship match between Houston, the Assassin Alexander, and Chuck Grigsby. Joe, who do you give this round to as we're under 10 seconds?
You know, this is one of those situations where I wouldn't want to be a judge. And, you know, right up until that big takedown, I probably would have said Chuck Grigsby. I'm going to give it to Houston Alexander on that last-minute takedown there.
All right, 2 rounds in the books. We'll be back with round 3 of our main event right after this. This is Victory Fighting Championship. Back here live at the Ralston Arena for VFC 40. Our main event, Chuck the Reverend Grigsby in the left upper corner. The hometown hero, Houston the Assassin Alexander, in the lower right corner. We are set for round number 3 of 5. This is the VFC Light Heavyweight Championship bout. The Reverend Chuck Grigsby, the reigning VFC Light Heavyweight Champion, and for the first time tonight, Chuck in the dominant position on Houston.
Yeah, if you're just joining us here, we have a little bit of a surprise for you here where these two are actually wrestling and shooting takedowns and not just trading
Don't
punches.
Turn your channel. This is Chuck Grigsby and Houston Alexander.
We've spent a lot of the first 2 rounds with Chuck Grigsby on his back after takedowns from Houston Alexander, and here we are changing that position, and we'll see how good Houston's defense is from the bottom as he's caught in the bottom of side control here, and Chuck's looking to cause some damage to him.
And really, over the course of his career, Joe, I mean, it's no secret, you know, being on the ground has pretty much been Houston Alexander's kryptonite. I mean, you know, that right hand and the bombs that he throws is what he's known for. But again, we talk about how he's, you know, changed gyms. He's over at Premier Combat Center now, where there are a lot of quality wrestlers and the likes of Jason Brills. As we see Chuck Grigsby getting ready to drop some elbows on Houston Alexander. But so far tonight, it looks like, you know, Houston is changing up his game plan and maybe adding some ground game and some wrestling to his repertoire.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and although Chuck's landing some pretty decent elbows here and controlling, Houston's doing a much better job of not being panicky from the bottom there. It looks like Chuck's looking at an arm here, trying to isolate, go 2-on-1. But again, it looks like Houston's, even though caught in a bad position here, he's not getting panicky and freaking out. And sometimes that's when you jump from the frying pan into the fire. And he doesn't seem to be doing that here. So that hard work at Premier Combat Center seems to be paying off. And sometimes when you're in these bad positions, the best thing you can do is just not freak yourself out and panic, because that's never going to be the answer in a fight.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier in the night with some of our fights, is that sometimes, you know, you can exert too much energy trying to, you know, or getting worked up, and instead of doing what you should do is trying to relax, which is, I guess, kind of hard to say when somebody, you know, 6'6", 205 is on top of you and dropping elbows.
Yeah, you know, the key, I think, is to be able to fight at a high level without, you know, turning on all of your emotions and just opening all the way up. And if anyone ever figures that out, they should write a book and sell it to me. And, you know, here we are, Matt. We got Chuck Grigsby controlling from the top now. Like I've said, a kind of a bizarre fight so far. I thought, you know, we'd see kind of a stand-up war. We've had 2 rounds of Houston on top, and now we're in round 3 with Grigsby controlling from the top position and working the body.
How critical is it for Houston now to have Chuck's left leg, you know, half guard right now? I mean, that's a little bit better than it was when Chuck was, you know, full head side, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Having some control, one leg at least, you're going to have some hip control. He's able to control Chuck's posture there and keep his head down. If Chuck could escape that leg, he'd be back either in that side control position we saw earlier, or potentially even the mounted position, which would be big trouble for Houston Alexander.
Well, I've seen Houston train a number of times. I've, you know, not just, you know, wrestling or boxing or kickboxing, but just also how he trains physically and the stuff he does to get his body ready. And, you know, I'm sure it's not pleasant what's going on right now for him, but Houston's a very tough guy, taking some shots from Chuck Grigsby. And right now, is Houston really just trying to survive this round and you know, keep the damage to a minimum?
Yeah, it looks to me like he's not trying to force a big scramble here and use all that energy to get back up. I think he realizes this late in the round, being controlled from the bottom position, that he's going to give this round away. He's probably just saving up, saying, hey, we got 4 and 5, we got those championship rounds coming up, and I'm going to save up a little of my energy for that. And Grigsby's done a good job of controlling it and landing some good shots, elbows and punches to the body, and we have a heck of a round so far.
Yeah, again, I mean, if you are just tuning in or expected to see Chuck Grigsby and Houston Alexander just trading blows, that's what we expected to see here tonight as well. But through the first almost 3 full rounds, we've seen the majority of this fight taking place on the canvas. And Joe Wilk has Houston Alexander on his unofficial scorecard, winning the first 2 rounds. And again, this one just based on the control that Chuck Grigsby has had over Houston this entire round. As we see Houston bleeding a little bit, and I guess you would expect that with some of the elbows that Chuck's been dropping.
Yeah, we got some color out there, you know, and the you know, and on judging rounds, you know, it's funny, that first round I think was definitely Houston Alexander. I think this 3rd round was definitely Grigsby, and that second one could go either way. And so we got a really close fight here heading into those championship rounds.
And guess what? We also have a real bloody fight now thanks to that 3rd round. We'll be back for 4th round action of the VFC Light Heavyweight Championship. This is Victory Fighting Championship. Welcome back to the Ralston Arena, Victory Fighting Championship 40. We are into the championship rounds, the first 3 rounds between Chuck the Reverend Grigsby on the left and Houston the Assassin Alexander on the right. We are into the 4th of 5 rounds here tonight in the VFC 40 main event. Alongside Joe the Nose Wilk, I'm Matt Kelly. And Joe, you said you gave the 1st round to Houston, the 3rd round to the Reverend Chuck Grigsby. You said that 2nd round, as of right now, could be the deciding one.
Yeah, absolutely, you know, and that's the great thing about title fights. If that fight went to the judges right there, who knows who won that fight. But here we have a couple more rounds, see if we can get something figured out. That's what the title fights are all about.
Chuck Grigsby drawing some blood from Houston Alexander in that last round in the closing minute or 2.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of blood, but it doesn't look like it's really affecting Houston's vision at all. You know, sometimes that's really bad. It looks terrible, and it's not affecting you at all. And sometimes it looks like a little scratch, and you can hardly see. So we'll find out, you know, if we go in further into the 4th and into the 5th round here, how Houston Alexander's vision is affected by that cut.
Well, it looks like both of these guys are maybe grappled out. Maybe they do want to stay standing for a while and show what they can do with their fists.
I think if we see some big exchanges on the feet here, we're going to hear this crowd go crazy. I think that they're as surprised as we are, and probably so are the two fighters in there. They're probably sitting here thinking, wow, we just fought most of that fight on the ground. Let's, exchange some punches here and see what happens. Oh, a big shot from Houston.
Big left hand from Alexander.
He's down.
And they have stopped the fight. Houston Alexander with a big left that knocked the mouthpiece out of Chuck Grigsby's mouth. Follows it up with another right, sending the Reverend to the canvas. And then he swarms him, and whether or not that was an early stop or not, I guess that's up for debate, but nonetheless, Houston, the Assassin Alexander, your new VFC light heavyweight champion, and here's how it happened.
Yeah, that left hand caught him and knocked his mouthpiece out. And Chuck looks like he took his eyes off the fight there for a second, possibly to look at his mouthpiece, and took 2 clean shots right on the chin. I don't think this is a bad stoppage at all. I think what happened is Chuck Grigsby was a little confused and was thinking they were going to stop the fight for his mouthpiece, and you can't ever take your eyes off your opponent. Protect yourself at all times is the name of the game, and he took 2 hard shots from a heavy hitter after that, and we got a new champion.
Houston, the Assassin Alexander, is defeated Chuck the Reverend Grigsby for the VFC light heavyweight strap. We'll be back with the official announcement right after this. You're watching Victory Fighting Championship. Welcome back to the Ralston Arena. VFC 40 has been concluded with Houston Alexander's 4th round stoppage of Chuck the Reverend Grigsby. Let's go inside the cage. Mike Kendall with our official announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, your referee, Dave Chubbuck, calls a stop to this fight in 1 minute, 39 seconds of the 4th round for your winner by knockout, Houston, the Assassin Alexander, and new light heavyweight champion.
Houston Alexander, the new VFC light heavyweight champion. So, Joe the Nose Wilk, just real quick, your overview on tonight's action here at VFC 40.
Bright lights and big fights as usual. We got 2 new champions, and we ended the fight with what we came to see, a big knockout from Houston, the Assassin Alexander.
The hometown, Houston, the Assassin Alexander, your new VFC light heavyweight champion. For everybody here at Victory Fighting Championship, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, December 14th, from the Ralston Arena for VFC 41. Good night, everybody. You've been watching Victory Fighting Championship.